Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. I know it's Halloween season, but I'm not wearing a wig, right? I have like really long hair. So I haven't had a haircut in 3 years. And I wear it in a ponytail most of the time. And I've not appeared on the channel with the full head of hair there. You can see how long it is. And I don't know. I was just in a mood today. I had a magnificent vacation. It's so great to be back. Thank you so much to all of you who supported me and helped me get this vacation and make it happen. It was very much needed. I thought about a lot of things, and I'm coming back now with a renewed sense of realness. And it's not that I was being deceptive. It's that, my hair, when I was growing it out, and I grew it out to save money on haircuts. I'm not even lying. Like, there was a point in my life where I couldn't afford the haircuts. And some people will say, well, Sage, doesn't that cost more to maintain long hair than it does short hair? No. I have really healthy, awesome, genes here for my hair. And so I just wash it once a day with a combination of shampoo, conditioner, and it's actually very little expense at all, less expense than the short hair. Going in, getting a haircut every month for $20 over the last 3 years. Yeah, you do the math. It's a significant chunk of change I saved. And also, I had long hair when I started the channel. I'm a musician. I've had long hair off and on again my whole life. And there is this image of how a minister maybe shouldn't have long hair. And that might have played a role in me making sure I always pulled it back in a ponytail every time. And some of you saw through that. Some of you are like, hey, Sage, do you have a ponytail? And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to save money on haircuts. But the vacation was a time of renewal for me. It was a time for me to come back and come back with a new realness, a new bluntness. And I'm just less concerned about what people think about me. And, if me having long hair causes you to lift your support or stop watching, well, you're probably not meant to be here anyway, right? This channel is very different than your average Christian-based channel. So this is the real me. This is who I am at night. I mainly always wear my hair in a ponytail, except in the evenings I let my hair down. So I thought you might want to see it. I washed it and blow dried it and everything just to make the video. So don't expect it all the time. I'll probably go back to the ponytail. But, I just had this great outpouring from the channel. Y'all responded to my call and my need for a vacation. It was wonderful. I spent time down on the beach with the wind in my hair. And I really got rested and recuperated. Had a lot of time to think. And it's time that we all got real about everything. It's time that we get more comfortable in our own skin, get more comfortable with our own religious ideas, our own political points of view, and start making our voices be heard. And hey, maybe this is also a sign that I'm healing and overcoming my people-pleasing deficit that I've always dealt with. It always gets me in so much trouble. And so I want to talk today, though, about what's coming. See, normally on a Sunday, I would preach some kind of Christian-based message, but the message coming through loud and clear through my entire 2-week vacation. Thank you, Lord, for a 2-week vacation. It was so wonderful. Just to rest, right? Just to turn off for a while. But the takeaway from all of that thinking and that alone time and time staring out over the ocean, the thing that came to me is that it's really important that we talk about what's next, because we're in this incredible moment of upheaval in the United States. It's been going on for some time. When I started this channel and warned you about Antifa, who we know now, an offshoot of Antifa, was responsible for the Charlie Kirk shooting. They're attacking ICE facilities in Chicago and Portland. Donald Trump has had to call in the National Guard. He's weaponizing, or he's activating, rather is a better word, local law enforcement, deputizing them many times and giving them federal power as well. And the Democrat leaders of these cities are fighting him tooth and nail. And things are heating up. And something is coming in this country that a few years ago, when I brought this up, when I mentioned that civil war could happen, that civil uprising could happen, that the breakdown of society could occur, 8 years ago when I first started talking about Antifa, I was labeled as crazy. And I know y'all call it Antifa, but the way they pronounce it for themselves is Antifa or Antifa. And so I do pronounce it the way that the people involved actually pronounce it, right? But when I was blowing the whistle on this organization many years ago, everyone thought I was paranoid. And it took 8 years to come to fruition. But Antifa and all of the trans activist parallel groups that are connected to Antifa are public enemy number one. And I warned you many years ago that their goal was to tear this country down, to tear it down to its foundations, to destroy the Constitution. And I would like to say that I'm happy with the way the government's been responding to this, but I fear they're stepping into a trap. That what we're facing in the very near future is martial law in America, a total lockdown of the United States, very much akin to what happened during COVID. And so, for those of you who think, oh, that could never happen, Sage, there's never going to be martial law in America. Well, we already experienced it without the Declaration. The martial law that took place during COVID is something none of us should ever forget. It should prove to you beyond a shadow of doubt that the United States is not immune to a total breakdown of society. They're not immune to a civil war. They're not immune to a lockdown or a martial law scenario. Many years ago, I read a book, I believe it was called En Route to Global Occupation. This book would have been written in the early 90s, that's when I read it in the mid 90s. And in this book, they expose a plot. And they claim this plot is something that's actively happening. It's something that that is being played out. Even back then, the seeds were being planted for a societal breakdown that would cause the United States to fall into some kind of civil disruption, some kind of civil war, or civil strife that would force whatever party is in power to enact a form of martial law, lock down the streets, make you have to show your papers, checkpoints on every corner, weapon searches, the suspension of the Constitution. That's what martial law is, the suspension of the Constitution. And in so many ways, the COVID lockdown proved to us that they can suspend constitutional rights even without an executive order, even without congressional approval, even without a formal mandate. They being the powers that be, can collectively decide to ignore the Constitution. Many of you know that I was part of a first response group coming out of a church in Texas to respond to the Katrina disaster in New Orleans. And that I went there with 16,000 pounds of food, water, diesel fuel, and diapers to bring relief to the people of New Orleans. And I was there 3 days after the hurricane hit, and I beat the National Guard there by several days. But they were starting, as I was leaving, they were starting to come in, and the very first thing they were doing was confiscating the firearms of law-abiding citizens who were only trying to protect their home and family from looters and lawlessness. The looting, the lawlessness, the armed encounters, the gunfire was so prevalent when I was there that I did not sleep. I let the other members of my group sleep, and I stayed awake for 36 straight hours until we could get out of there, because I did not feel like I was in a safe enough position to close my eyes. It was very unnerving, to see armed groups running around, taking what they wanted, confronting people, robbing people on the street. This kind of stuff was happening all around, and it was only my armed presence that kept them from, trying us. And they tried us anyway, right? They just decided it wasn't worth the trouble, and they went to find a less toothy sheep, right? a less determined defender. And so that taught me that even without congressional approval, even without presidential or gubernatorial approval, the powers that be, the people actually on the ground, can decide to suspend constitutional rights whenever they want to. Now, many of these cases ended up in the court system, some of them going to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has dutifully protected our constitutional rights. The problem is the wheels of justice grind slowly, and it often takes years to settle something. So that gives them years to violate your constitutional rights. So, and it's not that I'm against Donald Trump in any way, right? It's that I can see how the left is forcing his hand, that the left knows what they're doing. Their intention is to cause civil uprising, because what the massive plan is, the plan that was revealed in that book, En Route to Global Occupation, talks about how unrest in the United States could cause martial law to be declared by the powers that be, the Constitution suspended, the election suspended, and then uh, in the chaos, because that's going to cause chaos, because even, especially down here in the South, right? And I know this from COVID. People in Texas and Oklahoma, they didn't wear the mask. They didn't bow to the pressure. They challenged it. They filed lawsuits. They stood up for their rights. They refused to comply, right? And so even if we're in favor of the group that's in the White House or the governor's house when such a thing occurs and martial law is declared and this Constitution is suspended, there are those of us who are constitutionalists that will not tolerate it. We will not stand for it, and we're not going to take it, right? And so between the true enemies of the state and the loyal citizens who refuse to be bullied, violence will erupt. Groups, regions, counties, potentially cities, small towns, people will band together in opposition to the oppression. And even though the left is forcing Donald Trump to take some pretty serious actions, the kind of actions we've never really seen in this country, regular Army and Marines on the ground in Los Angeles recently over the past few months. Now we have the National Guard and federal troops, federal agencies, getting in armed conflicts at these ICE facilities against these Antifa agitators. And I think by having a heavy hand, which many of you are going to be like, get them. And I can relate, right? Who wants lawlessness? Who wants to see these people firebombing federal facilities? It's ridiculous. Something does need to be done. But unfortunately, the go-to method of meeting this kind of resistance with a strong hand is actually going to feed into the fears of your rank and file centrist and leftists. There's many people out there that are seeing they're ignoring the agitation by Antifa. They're ignoring the escalation by the left, right? The shooting of Charlie Kirk, for instance. And they're focusing on instead the response, the heavy-handed response. And the big question is, okay, Sage, then what do we do, right? Well, I got to say this. You can't let them run roughshod and destroy things. But at the same time, if you push your power to the limits, if you take maximum power in response, then you're going to play right into their fears. Not only that, you're going to be taking away not just the rights of the people who are abusing our constitutional rights, abusing their freedom of speech by being violent and by being agitators, by being instigators. Not only are you punishing them, but any kind of martial law or lockdown is going to punish the good folks. And many of us aren't going to take it. I've been quoted over the years as saying, if there are tanks in the street, that's my enemy, and I don't care what flag it's flying. That there's no reason to bring military force against a civilian population. But I'm afraid that's what is happening and is about to happen. And the left is forcing it. So what can we do? How can we combat it? Well, you can either let it happen or you can fight it full force. The bottom line is what I'm detecting, what I believe is happening, what was written in that book all those years ago is a plan, and it's something we're not going to be able to beat. Like, this is not avoidable. The left is instigating civil unrest. They're instigating a civil war. They've been doing it since I started blowing the whistle clear back in 2017, over 8 years ago. And they're not stopping anytime soon. In fact, they're getting more funding. They're getting more support from the left on Capitol Hill. They're getting more support from local governors and mayors and police forces. And they're not just being allowed to run roughshod over the people of these blue cities, but they're going about unchecked, destroying, burning, fighting, shooting people, right? And it's just a matter of time till things start going boom, right? Without saying it. But boom goes the you know what around here. I'm afraid is the future of this, and all it's going to take is one serious incident where a lot of people get hurt or unalived, and the powers in charge in Washington D.C., Donald Trump and the Republicans, will have no choice but to crack down. And many of us will get caught in the crackdown. Many of us will have to stop and show our papers because a handful made a challenge against the government. And you know, so what happens when someone declares martial law? Well, for one thing, the election gets put off. If you're in a time of insurrection or civil war or civil unrest or even widespread world war, which is also happening at the same time. I made a video 6 or 7 years ago that says civil war and World War III are happening at the same time. It was true then, it's true now. It's just slowly heating up like a frog boiling. You can put a frog in a pan of water and put him on the stove, and he's just totally happy, and then slowly turn the heat up. And he'll just adapt to it until he roasts, right? He'll sit right there and die when he could easily jump out of the pot. This is what it's like for us in this situation, that this has been going slow enough and incrementally enough that we're getting used to the chaos. We're getting used to the fighting in the street. We're getting used to the random shootings. And when the explosions start, we'll start getting used to those too. This is going to look a lot like the Irish Civil War, the IRA, and all of the destructive and horrific terror attacks that were part of that history. And once again, back to this blueprint that was shared with me through the book I read and also through what Shvali said. If you remember I met an MK Ultra trainer. She was also a whistleblower on this. And, the intention is to cause civil unrest, right? So that the United Nations can declare the United States a war zone, right? And not just suspend the Constitution, but do away with our constitutional form of government and come in and take control of both sides. This equals the kind of chaos, the kind of chaos that's going to erupt from the series of events that are coming is going to shake the foundations of everyone's life in this country. No one will go untouched. I think here in Oklahoma, it will have the least amount of impact, and it's one of the main reasons that I moved here, because I've been seeing this coming for a long time. I've been telling you this is coming for a long time. And without laying blame on Trump's response, this heavy-handed response is something that a lot of people on this channel are going to call for. A lot of people on the right are going to call for this kind of heavy-handed response. But in doing so, you have to ask yourself, we can retain order, but at what price, right? Because you can't just suspend some people's constitutional rights. It's all or nothing. And that's what I'm afraid is about to happen. Gun confiscations, tanks in the street, checkpoints, lockdowns. Think COVID, but with the full power and backing of the federal and local governments and law enforcement. And then there's going to be these blue states which aren't going to put up with it, and they're going to raise up their own force. And there's going to be standoffs. There's going to be force-on-force skirmishes. There's going to be warfare in the lawfare, right? They're already talking about lawsuits going back and forth. Donald Trump is so upset with, and I can't blame him, right? The people that run the state of Oregon are criminal, and they're communists, and they're not Americans, and I firmly believe they're the enemy, right? But he's looking into pulling their federal funding. It's like the left only sees the response, and they don't see the agitation and the instigation that's coming from groups like Antifa and the more liberal left-wing wing of the Democratic Party in Congress, and the leftist local governments who hate our country. They hate the United States. They hate the freedom. And so what's coming is going to be the biggest challenge that any generation has faced potentially since the Great Depression. That this will actually even be as big or bigger than the effect that World War II had on our nation. Because in World War II, life at home changed, but for the most part, it was still mom, apple pie, the flag, life is normal. You were sending your children and your husbands and fathers off to war, but war did not visit the homeland. In this scenario, war, it will visit the homeland. We are going to have more and more violence. This violence is going to become more and more two-sided, or even three-sided, as it were, the left, the right, and those of us caught in the middle. And many of you are going to be like me. It's like, I don't care what's happening in California and I'm in Oklahoma. I'm going to work. And if you stop me and ask to see my papers, I'm going to have something to say about it, right? If you stop me and want to search for weapons, I'm going to remind you that I have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, and you're not going to look in my car. And so that's going to cause other kinds of conflicts. It's a recipe for disaster. And not only that, it's part of a 100-year plan by people who are seeking to destroy our country. They're seeking to do away with the Constitution. They're seeking a new form of government. Some right-wing extremists want to see a totalitarian military state. Those on the left want to see their version of a totalitarian leftist communist utopia. And the fact of the matter is, the way the United States has been ran for the last 200 years is one of the most successful, if not the most successful government in world history. That the freedom of the people to speech, to the right to keep and bear arms, the right of pursuit of happiness, right? The limiting of governmental power has been something that has made our nation the most coveted nation on the face of the earth. But I don't see a pathway back to that reality. I don't see a pathway back to that reality in any scenario that I run. You know, are the good times really over for good? Merle Haggard asked some 40 years ago. Are we rolling downhill like a snowball headed for hell? The answer then was yes, and it's even more so now. That we are a downward snowball gaining momentum headed straight for hell. So, what do we do about it? Well, I'll tell you this, that if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. If you don't have a strong spiritual foundation throughout this process, you're going to lose your mind. When this gets very real, when this comes to your hometown, when it's your rights that are being violated, when it's your freedoms that are being infringed upon, you're going to have to dig deeper for your spiritual strength. You know, I knew the greatest generation that lived through both the Great Depression and World War II. And all of them, almost to the last one, said it was their faith in God, their belief that a better day was coming, their belief that they were working for something worth working for. They were fighting for something worth saving. It's going to take that spiritual strength to get you through. It's going to take that connection with God, that unction of the Holy Spirit, that love of Jesus Christ, that community and that family and that group that's going to hold you together through what's coming. We're going to go through this together. I say this in absolute certainty. This is part of having 2 weeks off to think, is that I came back understanding that this is the biggest challenge that we face as a people. This is the biggest challenge this country has ever faced. It's about to come apart at the seams. And many biblical scholars say that's also according to prophecy. But no matter what happens through this, it boils down to you as a person. Are you ready for this? You're never going to be ready as a prepper. You're never going to be ready as a fighter, right? It's how do you prepare for something so incredibly immense occurring? And the answer is plain and simple. It's your spiritual workout that's the most important. It's your connection to God. You know, there's going to be moments when the Holy Spirit speaks to you and says, don't go to work today. There's a trap waiting for you. Don't go down that road. Go a different way today. And it's your ability to tune in to the guidance of the Holy Spirit that's going to see you through these difficult times. I urge every one of you to seek God's mercy. And I stand on this promise that I still think it's possible. I still think it's possible. I have faith that if we turn to God and we turn our back on our wicked ways, and we pray for forgiveness, and we turn our face towards God, that He is duty bound to heal our land. We can't save it. There's a plot that's being engineered from both extreme sides. There's a plot that's been in place since before any of you even knew any of this was going on. I've been aware of this plot for many years, and I've been seeing it play out over the last decade. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. I hate to sound black pilled, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. Only God can put an end to this. So I do believe that the Charlie Kirk thing has spawned a revival. I predicted this not 10 days before he was shot, that there was a great revival coming to this land. That when times get hard, people hit their knees. And if enough of us hit our knees, if enough of us involve ourselves in intercessory prayer, if enough of us listen to the voice of God, maybe we can turn the tide of chaos. At least we have a chance of getting through it. We have a chance of leading our families through it. We have a chance to get through on the other side and look back on it and go, that was crazy. I can't believe that happened, but here we are. We survived. In the end, I'm a survivalist. In the end, my goal is simply to survive to see another day. And this will be our future, I'm afraid. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Do you think that the current events and the situation are leading to Donald Trump not having any choice but declare martial law, not having any choice but to suspend the Constitution and the elections, to take back control of our country? But I don't think it'll go down that way. I think even the attempt to take back control of the country will play right into the hands of the overall plan, because their goal is to have an appointed government in the United States, selected by the international community to answer the chaos that's here. And we won't even talk about what Russia's doing right now. That's a whole nother video. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Don't forget to support the channel. It's your kind donations that keep me on the air. I hope I don't lose any supporters because I've got the long hair. But you know what? I'm just being me. This is me. I'm a musician. And hey, I can grow hair. So why not? I think it probably takes a few years off my face and shows that I'm maybe healthier than a lot of people thought, right? Okay, tell me what you think about the hair, too. We'll see you next time. God bless.